What's going on, guys? It's Yahavy David St. Clair Speaks, and you are now tuned in to the St. Clair Speaks Show. You are now tuned in to the St. Clair Speaks Show.
Welcome back to the St. Clair Speak Show podcast. I'm your host, Yahavy St. Clair, sitting down with another incredible guest. Woo! I am excited. All right, I'm really excited for this. Okay, so today's guest is going to be Justin Moy. He is. I'm not gonna lie, this guy's the GOAT, and we didn't even really get into the conversation yet, but I just feel the energy. I just feel the energy. All right, so for those of you that don't know, let me give you the rundown on Justin. Now, he's pretty much launched his real estate career some years ago. And in his journey as a real estate professional, he started out by selling single family homes in the third most competitive market in the country. And he was able to become the top form producer within his second year in the largest firm in the area. Throughout his experience, he realized that there's a difference between being rich and being wealthy. He started looking for various different ways to turn his high transactional income into a long-term wealth. So, without further ado, Justin, I want to welcome you onto the podcast. Now, there's so many different lanes that we could go today, but I want to start with the basics. How did you get started in real estate? Like, excuse my language for lack of better words, but what the hell is real estate syndication and apartments? Like, what is that? How did you get started? And of course, what brings you onto the show?
Hey, Mr. St. Clair, man, I am excited to be here. Quite the intro wizard. I got to get you on UFC or boxing matches, man. You bring the heat. I love it. Yeah. So my journey has been pretty incredible. You wrapped it up, pretty well. I've been a lifelong real estate careerist. I've loved this industry. Like we were talking about a little bit before you hit record, you could do like anything and everything within this industry. There's so many niches. There's so many things you could do. If you have a lot of money, a little money, if you have good connections, don't have any connections, there's something for everybody. And what I stumbled upon is called syndication. Now, it's a really fancy term for pooling together a lot of resources to take down one large deal. So a lot of commercial properties are syndicated, a lot of strip malls, a lot of apartment buildings, which is what we do. So what happens is, let's say you have a $10 million apartment building and you got to come up with the 25% down payment, plus there's some 5% closing costs. Okay, now you got to come up with $3 million to purchase this investment. Well, not a lot of people have $3 million to put out an investment. And even those who do typically want some type of diversification on it. So what happens is we'll find those properties and we'll take a group of investors and we'll say, hey, investors, we're going to buy this $10 million property. These are the projected returns. We don't want to put in $3 million ourselves. So we can all put in a little bit of money to get a piece of this pie, really. So you can invest in these deals 100% passively. Put up your equity, get some shares of equity in the deal, and all the shares of cash flow, of appreciation, all the sale proceeds. You get all of it as a passive investment. So it's a really, really phenomenal way to bring people who are not real estate experts or the ultra filthy rich into these high class investments that really you never used to be able to do before.
Man, yo, Justin, okay. I'm really going to calm down right now because, again, there's so many different ways that we go. Like, I love all that. Let's swing back. How did you get to this point being I like to say a savvy real estate investor? How did you get the confidence and commit to this full time and say, this is what I want to do?
Yeah, it was a long journey. So really when I was in real estate sales, what really drove me, and as I've matured and as I've grown, I've been able to really put these words together and be comfortable with the self-conscious nature of what I was feeling back then. Because again, I was an 18, 19-year-old kid. My average home sale was $2.2 million. I mean, it was no joke. I was slinging houses. And what really, really drove me was the embarrassment of failure. One thing that I was doing is, when you're in real estate, especially as a salesperson, you're telling everybody and anybody like, hey, I'm in real estate. If you got a home, if you know somebody, refer them to me. And I was petrified of falling flat on my face and failing. I had told everybody about it already. I was posting on Facebook about it. All my friends knew, all my family knew. And because I was so young, whether this was good or bad, people would hit me right in the face with like, oh, nobody will do that with you. Nobody's going to sell their home with you. You're way too young. They want more experience. In a very, very competitive market like the Bay Area, there's generational real estate agents there. They're inheriting their father's business, who inherited his father's business, who sold the land when there was dirt there. So you're competing with a ton of big money, a ton of big players, a lot of people who've been in the space for a long, long time. So as most people do, I really run away from pain, and the pain I was running away from was failure. So I was just working as hard as I freaking could, man. I was working 7 days a week, 12, 13, 14 hours, anything to just not fail and to just not embarrass myself in front of my friends and family. And it ended up paying off. But through the process, I realized, like, man, I was exhausted. I was tired. I was making good money, but I was on this treadmill that just, I couldn't stop. It was taking an impact on my personal relationships, on my physical, my mental health. And I just knew I needed to switch into something longer term, which is why being an actual investor as a broker really appealed to me.
Man, that's amazing. You said something I want to swing back to. And when you said it, I'm like, I'm sure you hear this all the time. But Justin, you're so young. I'm pretty sure you hear this all the time. Justin, you're so young. You can't do this. Like, how do
Yeah.
you get over those, like, those misconceptions?
Yeah. I mean, I think, when people are saying you're young as an obstacle, what they really are doing, or what they're projecting on you, is that they don't think that you have the maturity needed to do whatever it is you're talking about doing. So whether it's investing with us, or whether it's selling their home with us. So me, as being that person who was 18, 19 years old, really overcoming a lot of these objections, this was over 10 years ago. So I don't really have those objections come now, but back then I did. And for anybody who's listening, who's kind of going through that, you're going to get hit with that obstacle. People will, maybe they'll say it to your face, or maybe they won't. Maybe they'll just say, hey, I'm not looking to do X, Y, and Z right now. But they just feel like you're too immature for it. The age really isn't what matters. It's the maturity level. And so when you are able to speak confidently on topics, when you can show that you're well educated, or you're well networked, or other key movers in the area of whatever field you're in, or you can even reference things that you're doing to learn, like, hey, I'm listening to podcasts. Hey, I'm reading these books that are teaching me X, Y, and Z. Those things are going to push your perceived maturity level way up. And then you can come off shining brighter than some people who are a little bit older than you. But just know, if you're a little bit younger going into an industry that's dominated by, a good old boys network, you're going to have to look for ways to separate your maturity level from your actual numeric age.
I love that. So there was a question that I asked my recent guest on my last show last week. Again, in the real estate industry, what's separating a successful real estate agent versus someone that's unsuccessful? Because from the outside looking in, a couple things that I've noticed is there's some agents that have, various little side jobs, or they're not seeing as much success. And you talk about maturity, and you're onto a good point. So in your second year, like you just killed it. Like, you scaled quickly.
Yeah.
How did you find that success, and what were some teaching points for you?
Yeah. Well, to your first point, why do some people fail and some people just absolutely take off? Real estate as a profession is actually the number one most failed business. Now, that statistic is a little bit skewed because some people get their license without ever planning on being full-time. Some people get it just for education, for other things within real estate they want to do. So it's a little bit skewed, but statistically speaking, it is the most failed industry, the most failed profession or most failed class of entrepreneur out there, because real estate as an industry is as a sales, a broker, is both the easiest and the hardest job out there, in my opinion. It's very easy because there's a playbook to it. Really, what makes you successful is you've got to prospect like hell. You've got to ask people all day, every day, if they want to sell their home. You got to get told no a ton. I cold called, which is not a taste that everybody's willing to do. Some people go door to door. Some people will send out a ton of mail and spend a lot of money, or spend their way into more business. All these things work, but every tactic has a little bit of a downside that a lot of people aren't willing to do, at least not long term. And I was there. It took me about 6 months to get my very first deal. It took me about 6 months of no pay. I had no money. Thankfully, I lived with my parents. No pay, no money to get my first deal. And I'll tell you this, when I got my first listing, I was banging the phones all day, literally 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 hours a day. It sucked. It really sucked. And remember, it was like 7:30 or 8 o'clock at night. Office was completely empty. It was dark in there. And I'm calling. And I'm like, man, why am I doing this? It's been 6 months. And I remember it was almost to the day. I remember having the conversation like, man, this Friday is going to be 6 months. I've gotten nowhere. Like, is the pain of this every day greater than the pain of me facing my friends and family, just saying, yeah, it didn't work out, whatever. And I decided that I was going to quit. Actually, I was done. 6 months down the drain. And, I was already preparing. How am I going to tell people? What's the excuse I'm going to make to say, oh, it didn't work out because, X, Y, and Z. And I just happened to I was going to close my laptop. I opened up Craigslist one more time, looking for homes for sale by their owners, which I could come in and sell it for them. And there was one listing. It came up like 15 minutes before I opened it up. Something crazy, because I checked it like an hour before. And I stared at this listing for probably like 2 or 3 minutes solid. I was just staring at it, thinking, do I do it? Do I just call one more? Do I just quit now? Who cares? I've called hundreds of these people. They've all told me no. And I looked at it, and I said, forget it. I'll do this one last one. If he or she says no, I know that this isn't for me. I'm out of here. I call, this very nice lady picks up. I go through my script half-assed because I'm already done at this point, right? I have no energy. I'm not like you right now, right? I'm like, hi, this is Justin. I'm kind of defeated already. And I ended, and I'm like, hey, so, would you be open to hearing me come by and seeing if I could sell your house? Something half-assed, right? And she goes, yeah, why not? And it was almost like I thought I was being pranked. I didn't even know what to say. I said, okay, yeah. Why don't I forgot what I said. Why don't I call you tomorrow and we'll get something nailed down, because I needed like somebody with me. And that ended up being my very first listing, my very first sale. And she not only sold her home, but she bought her home with me. They closed on the same day. Ended up being just shy of $100,000 paycheck, all at once, as an 18-year-old kid. So I was done. I was totally, totally done. And not a lot of people are willing to go to that deep water. And to be honest, I wasn't either. I was done. I was at the complete end of my rope. But I stuck with the process. One call enough to get me through it. And that was the start of all the momentum I needed.
Yo, I love that story, man. I feel like I was in the trenches with you on that. Like, yeah, like you talk about the cold calling. It's like, man, like you're just one call away, and that's it. And you were uncomfortable in the process, man. Congratulations.
Yeah,
so,
appreciate it,
dude. Yeah, I love the transparency, because what I've noticed is everyone's just showing their highlight reels. No one's talking about like the downside. No one's talking about the bloopers. I love hearing about how'd you get to this point. Like you were in the trenches, like, making those calls, like really trying to figure it out.
Yeah.
And you did it. Like it was all worth it. Man, that's awesome. Now look at you. You're here telling the story. I live for this stuff, man. This gives me energy.
I love it, man. I love it. I'm glad I'm able to contribute to this.
Yeah. So I want to talk to you right before we started recording. This energy is offline, online. It's the same.
Yeah.
I'm really excited to talk to you about what is it? Apartment syndication.
Yeah.
What is that? What made you fall in love with it? And how are you finding your success with that? And how is it working for you?
Yeah. So, my quick elevator pitch is always, I show people how to invest passively in apartment buildings for high double-digit returns and the best tax benefits that this country has to offer, this country being America, if you have international listeners. So I really fell in love with this business because as I was selling real estate, I understood other niches. There's wholesaling, there's flippers, there's long-term rentals, short-term rentals, mid-term rentals. I mean, there's anything and everything you could do. And as I started to realize, just because I was in real estate at such a young age, I understood real estate in such an intimate fashion that I didn't even understand other people didn't. It was unconsciously made sense to me. And so when I would say, throw out a real estate term or throw out a real estate strategy, and people would say, well, wait, what does that mean? And I'm like, oh, I forgot. Like, not everybody's been in real estate game since they were 18 years old. So I really, really authentically love educating people, especially on something that I think really, 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 really matters and can completely change their lives. So the reason I love syndications is it solves a ton of issues for people. Most people already know that real estate's a great investment. Most of people know that, but there's a lot of barriers that syndication solves. First is you don't need a ton of money to get started. You do need money, but it's low relative to buying a property or buying a property yourself. It provides scale of time. It's 100% passive. So if you don't got money and you don't got time to invest in real estate, this solves two of those already. Those are the biggest ones. And you get to leverage the expertise of guys like me who have been in this game for 12, 13 years now almost. And we operate real estate very, 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 very well. So when I realized that like not everybody had that intimate knowledge, and there was this need for people to have options to invest in real estate, which is one of the strongest and most consistent asset classes to invest in, I was like, man, I got to let more people know about this. And so what I love about this business is when I get to talk to an investor for the first time and I see that like spark in their eye. They're like, wow, I can do this. Like, I don't need to save up for years and years and years and buy a house and look for property and talk to realtors and underwrite and do financial analysis. We do that for you. We'll just let you do it passively and get some of the benefit. So I love seeing that look when somebody realizes, man, like I can get into real estate investing and I don't have to be this millionaire that I thought once needed to be. I don't need to be an expert in the field, but I could still have all those benefits.
And you also like, man, you're dropping a lot of gold right now. You're dropping a lot of gems. What is the biggest challenges that you've been faced with as an apartment syndicator, and how do you overcome them?
Yeah. Man, there's challenges that people face all the time. I think challenges are just so relative because if I wasn't in apartment investing, I'd still have challenges in my career. There would just be other challenges. So one of the challenges that we'll face is because we use, like you said, OPM, we use other people's money. Now we invest ourselves as well. So we also put our money into our deals, but we use other people's money. And when you use other people's money, I don't care how experienced you are, or I don't care how long you've been in this game, how good the deal you're investing in is. There's always a sense of heightened responsibility that you will never really shake off your shoulders completely. I know if I invest in a property, and I have invested in properties that haven't done so well because I'm testing things with my own money, I know that I'm okay with whatever outcome it is. When you're using other people's money, again, we're very good at this and we have a very, very strong track record, but there's always something in just kind of weighing on you. Like, hey, these are other people. They're depending on you. They've bought into you. They're trusting you. So there's a little bit of an extra responsibility there, as opposed to if it's me, I know I can put my money to the wind and I'm okay with whatever happens. When it's other people, there's a certain amount of responsibility you should feel if you're a great and decent person when you're managing other people's money.
Good point. Okay. Again, staying on that topic, right? Next question is, what makes apartment syndication a truly passive form of real estate investing from the long-term standpoint?
Yeah. So it's not necessarily an apartment building that's passive. It's the method that you use to invest in. So there are only a few passive strategies of investing. And I actually wrote an entire ebook on it. It's called The Definitive Guide to Passive Real Estate Strategies. If you want to download it, you go to thedefinitiveguyebook.com. But there's about 3 strategies that will truly be passive. So another big obstacle that I saw people doing is they were saying, hey, I want passive income. I'm going to go buy some properties. But you have to have a property manager who you think is going to do all the work, but they really don't. You still have to be pretty involved to run a property right. Or you have to hire such a big team that they eat up all your returns if you really want to take that off your plate. So there's a few investing strategies, syndication being one of them, where you are what's called a limited partner. You're a silent investor. You're giving money in a passive sense, and there's zero expectation of your time, your knowledge, your energy, your mental capacity, or anything. So most of the time, a syndication is going to be in a bigger asset, like an apartment building or like another commercial property, just because a single family home might be kind of small to bring on a lot of investors. But it's the strategy that makes it passive. So if you're looking for something truly passive, you have to be knowledgeable of those strategies and make sure that you pick a strategy that's right for you.
Very good point. I want to swing back to something you mentioned too. Very key word, partnership, right?
Yeah.
My mentor told me this a long time ago. It always stuck with me. He said, Yahavy, real estate is a team sport.
Yeah.
So when identifying a partner that you want to work with and you're going in on a deal, what are some things that you look for? Is it characteristics? Is it a proven track record? What do you look for?
Yeah, there's a few things we look for, and we do partner on deals. And so one thing that we might do is we'll say to our investors, hey, there's this awesome partner here in this area. We know, like, and trust them. We know, like, and trust the property and their track record. So we'll, bring them onto that deal and we'll raise money for it. What I look for in those partners is, yes, there has to be a track record of success in this field specifically. Now, if you're a little bit newer in the game, don't worry. You can prove a track record of success with other things you've done in your life. But for us, just at the level that we operate at, I do need to see that you've been in this field for a good amount of time and you have a good track record. I have to know you as a partner and an operator. So there's a lot of, our company is relatively small compared to like the Grant Cardones of the world or, these huge, huge organizations. Personally, we would not invest in an organization. Not that we've been invited to invest with Grant Cardone, but I don't like that big conglomeracy. I want to know the partners. I want to know the owners. I don't want to talk to some investor relations staff member, who's not really, they're not signing on the loan. Their name's not on the title. I want to know who's really in this game. So the organization for me can't be too big where the partners won't talk to us. And once I meet them, I trust my gut. I've been in sales and marketing for my entire professional career, almost 13, 14 years now. I've learned at this point that when your gut is telling you something's right or wrong, that a lot of times it's right. So I don't have a hardcore interview I put them through, but I do want to meet them. I want to see them in a social setting. We'll probably get lunch or some drinks together and just kind of let loose. And I just want to know who they are as a person. If I know, like, and trust them, and I know, like, and trust their instincts and who they are as a person, what their values are, then I'll have a good decision ready to go. But yeah, it's a mixture of art and science. I need the science of seeing the proven track record, but the art of, hey, at the end of the day, you just got to know people.
Yeah. Let's go. I guess my next question, man, I got some good ones, man. I'm just like straight fire.
Load them up. I love it.
I'm gonna give a quick applause real quick. Just real quick. All right. So I guess I want to swing back. Good points, all good points you just mentioned. I want to talk to you about markets, right?
Mm-hmm.
I hear this from every investor says something different. There are some that just stay in the market that they know. They like staying in their own backyard. They don't like investing in markets they don't know.
Yeah.
What is your mindset when it comes to finding a market that you want to invest in?
Yeah. Man, if you don't know that market very, very intimately, partner with somebody who does. So a really good example of this is one of our markets is certain areas in St. Louis. Now, St. Louis, anybody who's ever been there, man, it is a block by block by block, centimeter by centimeter kind of town. You have, 2 blocks over in certain areas, like some of the nicest homes that you have. And if you go 2 blocks the other way, you're in the thick, like big time. And so we only investor because we have one of our partners was born and raised there, currently lives there, and that man knows that city like the back of his hand, better than the back of his hand. And so if we didn't know that, and we'll see people come in from out of town and buy a property, and we're like, man, they're going to hate that. They're going to be in trouble. They overpaid a lot for it. They don't understand the tenants there are going to be this certain type of tenant. They need a lot of legal expenses here, or they don't understand that when the town was developed, those properties over there, they use clay in their plumbing and they haven't been updated. So there's a lot of things, a lot of little nuances that can really screw you up. So if you don't know the market, that's fine. Statistically speaking, most people live in an area that they don't want to invest in, like California or New York, just because the prices are really high. The laws are not landlord friendly. So most people look out of state or out of their backyard. I think it's very important to have somebody who really, really operates there and is local to the property. And they have to know the market intimately. You can't just throw caution at the wind and say, oh, the numbers look good on the spreadsheet and invest in it. Every property and neighborhood and even block or submarket has a story. You got to really understand that story.
All right. So Justin, I want to swing back 3 years ago. The entire world shut down. A lot of things was going crazy. Big companies closing down, people potentially losing their homes, stock market going. What was your mindset in that moment when it came to real estate? What were you looking at? Were you currently investing passively? Were you looking for things? Were you taking a back step? What was your mindset?
Here's my mindset. My mindset on a personal level was, it's very unfortunate, right? There were people losing lives. There were people losing their jobs. There were people losing their homes. There were people like my mother who were losing their retirement. The stock market plunged, right? So she actually couldn't retire on time. She had to push it off a little bit. So from a personal perspective, I was very sad like everybody else. I saw that the world was really spiraling and the Fed had to do what the Fed had to do to get us out of that. We're seeing the impacts of that now in terms of super high inflation, and we're seeing it's going to take a little bit longer to recover. And we're paying in recession now, right, to help us get through that recession then. So from a personal perspective, I think I was hurt just like everybody else. But from a real estate perspective, I was extraordinarily excited. Unfortunately, I was extraordinarily excited because market changes are where the richest people are made. And that's where the greatest opportunity happens. So the market's changing right now, like literally right before your eyes. Every news piece that comes out that the Fed raises rates, every time we read the inflation numbers, every time we see the jobs report come out, because that's part of our job too, we stay on top of those. I just see opportunity everywhere to go. So there's a lot of distressed properties going to be hitting the market here in the next year or two. And we knew that would happen because of the way that the lending markets were happening, 2 to 3 years ago. That the lending packages offered. So from a real estate perspective, I knew there'd be massive, massive opportunities for the retail investor and for the little guy to finally make some moves.
Dude, that is it's kind of like when it is what someone else's pain is someone else's opportunity.
Yeah.
And when you look at foreclosures, you look at auctions, tax lien properties, it's like it's a good opportunity.
Yeah, it is. And it's a necessary opportunity, right? Because what's going to happen and is happening is people took out these really short-term loans and they need to pay that loan back. And with the rates being what they are now, they can't afford to refinance it. So they have to sell it. And those are the properties that we make the best returns on, that investors like the most. So yeah, in a way, they call it buying all those blood in the streets or taking advantage of different situations. Everybody's in certain situations and they need somebody to come and buy that property from them. And that's what we're here to do. We're here to make great investments on behalf of our investors. We work for our investors. We don't work for the current owner of the property. Our job is to get the best deal for our investors. And there'll be a lot of that coming up.
So I want to ask, this might be a question that has a lot of detail, but if you're looking, it's Monday morning or say Tuesday morning, whatever, and you're potentially looking at, potential, properties that you want to invest in, what are the things that you look for particularly, or is this something that jumps out at you, or it's in a specific market?
Yeah.
What's your mindset on that?
Yeah. So to get the best returns, what we look for, we do what's called value add. So commercial properties are valued based on their income. So their net income. So there's two general things that I actually like to see on a property when we're looking at it. First is their income low relative to what I've seen in this market, in this area? And then the second thing is, are their expenses high relative to what I've seen in this market or in this area? So we recently took over a property, 144 units, and their expenses were sky high. I think they're like 65 to 70% of their income was expenses. And for a property this size, you should be closer to 40 to 45, maybe 50. So 10 to 15% extra expenses on a 144 unit property that does, $3 million a year in income, that's a significant amount of expenses. So we ended up buying that property, and we actually just finished up one of our case studies. So over the last 6 months we've owned it, relative to the same 6-month period the previous ownership held it, we cut our expenses down by 28%. So when you cut your expenses down by 28% and then you multiply the value over what's called a cap rate, we just created about $2 million of additional value in the property without really even starting to do anything else to it. And then when you say, hey, there's rehabs needed, or there's, we got to fix up a lot of the property to bring markets, to bring rents up. We got to renovate units, like outdated units. We're layering additional income on top of cutting down expenses, and we're seeing big returns. So yeah, I like to see a mismanaged property. I like to see those high expenses, and I like to see those low rents that we know we can come in there and fix up.
Quick question, teachable moment. Like what are you learning in this process? If you kind of like wrap up everything that you're doing in real estate as a whole, what is the biggest teachable moment for you?
The biggest teachable moment in my career?
Yeah, in your career.
Yeah. I think the biggest teachable moment in my career is, they always say, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. And I think you had alluded to that too. Partnerships are everything, not just in real estate, but in general things, even in life. We're creatures who crave a community, who need to be a part of something, who need to identify with the group. So I was very, very pig-headed when I was young, and that's probably why I was failing for those first couple months in the real estate business, because I thought, I said, forget it, I'll just do everything myself. But as I've grown and as I've matured, I mean, I go the opposite. I don't ever take on problems by myself anymore. I will always seek out mentorships, whether they're formal or informal. I will always seek out the advice of my friends and family, and other people who I've done business with in the past, or just met in the past. So the biggest teachable moment is, no matter where you're at in your life, you have to build your community. You want to build your bench of people who you know, like, and trust and can reach out to. And if you want to go far in whatever you're doing, make sure you have a really, really solid team around you and be very protective of that audience. We've always heard you're the average of the 5 people you hang out with the most. Look around, who you spend your time with. And just whoever that person is, that's fine. But just know they're either going to pull you up to their level or pull you down to their level, and you're going to stay there.
Man, you kind of like took my other question I was going to ask. Like, you give your younger self some advice, but
yeah,
you hit it spot on. All right, so I'm gonna kind of mix it up for you a little bit. If you're, with your experience now, if you had to start all over again, what's that process like for you?
Man, what's the process like if we could start all over? I mean, I think from a very surface level conversation, I would go into apartments right away. Obviously, just because I know the business now, I could have scaled a lot quicker, a lot faster. Partnerships was huge. I should have seeked out mentorships, both formal and informal. Pay for partnerships, pay for networking events, pay for mentorships and coaches. Those will pay off. A good coach or mentoring program or a good mastermind or something like that will pay you back in an infinite amount of return. I can't tell you how much more value I've gotten out of mastermind programs or mentorship programs where I've happily paid, 25, 50, closer to $100,000 just for entry. So seek those things out and really continue to grow. I always like to say too, learning and training isn't something that you did, it's something that you do. So you got to get better every day. You got to learn every day. You got to get better every day. Whatever you're working on, train it every single day and train it right. People always say practice makes perfect, but it doesn't. Practice makes permanence. If you practice something incorrectly, you're going to learn to do it incorrectly. So whatever you're doing and you want to get better at it, you got to do it every day.
Man, let's clap it up for Justin one time.
I got the whole audience out here. I like it.
Yeah, clap it up. Clap it up. I mean, like, look, you hit the nail right on the head with that. Definitely partnerships for sure. What I'm learning just through the conversation as well, just talking to you today, it also helps you skip that learning curve. Also gives you a little bit more confidence to kind of like just step into industry that's also like foreign to you. So I just think that partnership point, it's key because you can't do everything by yourself. There's some things that you're designed to do with others.
Yeah. And it's playing to your strengths, right? Like there's certain things that make a real estate business run very well that I would just hate to do. There's certain financial analysis or financial modeling, or there's other, verifying taxes and tax. Yeah, that makes my head just go numb with boredom. I love to talk to investors though. And there's people on our team who are not the social people. They would hate to do something like this. They don't want to come on a podcast, and that's just not who they are. So find what your strengths are and really find others who complement your weaknesses. And those are their strengths. And again, you could go very far.
All right. I know we're kind of like summing it towards the end, but this is a really good one for you. So we're in March. Within the next like 6 months or a year from now, in terms of like real estate, is there like, a project that you're looking into? Is there something that you're excited to look into, or there's new things going on?
Yeah. Oh yeah. There's always deals in the pipeline. What I've been telling everybody this year is it's going to be a year of patience for buyers, because I mentioned there's going to be a lot of great opportunities, but there's going to be fewer opportunities in general. People don't have to sell right now. They won't, but the people who do have to sell are very motivated to sell. So if you're a real estate investor, or you're looking to passively invest, or you want to reach out and if you call me right now, I don't have a deal to put you in because it takes patience, but you're going to see fewer opportunities, but those opportunities are going to be better. So just know if you're in this aggressive growth mode, I don't know that you'll beat your transactions from last year. You might, but it would just be tough. But the deals that you do this year are going to be better.
Man, that's a good point. Yo, I'm mad I didn't ask this one sooner, but I'm going to try to sneak this question in real quick. wholesalers, are you seeing wholesalers in that space, like working with apartments? Yes, no, not so.
Man, not so much, not as many. I don't know why. I've actually wholesaling has never been a realm that I've gone into a lot myself. I understand the concept of it. It's a great way to get after it, especially if you have no money and you're really good at sales and marketing, which is with me to a T. I just didn't get into that field. So wholesalers don't typically have bigger stuff. When it comes to larger apartments that we buy, over 100 units or 50, 60, 70 units, a lot of times you have these bigger institutional investors like us, or ownership groups, not so much, somebody who owns it. A lot of wholesalers I know make a lot of their money on, I forget what they call it, the 4Ds or something like that. I think it's default, divorce, death, and something else, where there's a lot of that distress. And people just want to wash their hands of it, get out of it. In the apartment game, it's less common because you have typically more of an organization running the properties. So I think that factors into it. But generally, no, I think I've met a handful of wholesalers in my time that do larger multifamily. Another thing too about that is you'll make a lot of money as a broker. So what you're doing as a wholesaler, you're doing all the jobs as a broker. Just I think you make more as a broker. So most will go that route.
I appreciate you answering that question. And the last one, I promise, is the last one, real
Yeah,
quick.
take them all, man.
But
No problem.
if you're looking to bid on a property, like, who's your opposition on the other side? Are you guys competing with crowd funds, like, or
Yeah.
just other investors?
Yeah. So for our buy box now, a little bit about our company is we like to stay a pretty tight knit group of investors. So, I mentioned before, like the Grant Cardones in the world, they're buying, $50 million plus properties because they can raise a ton of money. They don't really see all their investors. They don't talk to all their investors. They have properties and investors at scale. We keep things really tight knit. I know every single investor that we have by name, face, phone number, their kids. We have a lot of events in person that we host. We don't want to be that huge company that doesn't really know their investors that well and just takes anybody and everybody's money. So because of that, we tend to stay within that, 20 to $30 million range as a max. And so we're not competing with those big institutions, really, like the Grant Cardones of the world or the Fundrisers of the world or huge funds. But we're competing with other people our size. They might be syndication groups, some family offices where they manage a lot of money. But generally, it's going to be groups similar to us in this buy box. Yeah, we're not really doing like the big funds or the
And
Blackstones or them.
good point. And I guess my I've heard someone say this on my last podcast, again, in ties to real estate, but I guess for you, it's probably the same in terms of, like, based on how many transactions you've done over the years, you're noticing a lot of repeat business from, like, the investor side. Like,
Yeah,
hey, like, in terms of reputation, they're always going to come to you. So it's like kind of like repeat
yeah,
business.
sure.
How do you, I guess my question is, how do you balance all of that, Justin? Because if you have, you know, 20 people that you're consistently working with, then
Yeah.
you have, 5 people that are just new. How do you take on that capacity to manage your current clients and investors that you worked with in the past, and
Yeah.
the new existing investors that want to come in and work with you guys?
Yeah. So, I mean, it's a phenomenal question. And once you invest with us, you're really in the investor network. And so there's a lot of people who have, want to invest or express interest in investing. They haven't quite made that step yet, which is no problem. But, we have a group of about 50 really solid investors that just constantly invest in almost all the deals that we do, maybe every other deal that we do. And so we have new people come in all the time too, who are asking to invest, or I do a lot of stuff like this where I meet a lot of new people. So when it comes to scale, the scale of actually working with the investors doesn't tend to be an issue because we are working with a property that has many investors. We could be working with, 14, 15, 16 investors on one deal. So it's one deal we're managing. It's one update we're giving. It's one event we're hosting maybe for them. So we can really do a lot of these things at scale, but we are cognizant of how big we want to go. Where we're not taking on the nameless, faceless investors. That's just not who we want to be. So there is a little bit of a capacity there, but we'll always make time for people who are truly passionate about this, who want to get started, want to be educated, and want to be part of the network.
Man, you're a man. You're a gem, Justin. You're a gem, right? You're a gem.
Miss
All right.
St. Clair.
All right. So if you could wrap up, we're gonna wrap up this interview, right? But if you could kind of like gift wrap everything that we talked about today, what do you want the takeaway message to be for the listeners and the audience?
Yeah. My takeaway message is always aimed towards those people who are looking to invest passively in properties, because there used to be factors that would limit your ability to do so, but now just with technology and with the way that we're able to structure businesses, it's not. If you really want to build wealth beyond what you're able to do from a time perspective, look into real estate as a passive investment. Check out my download, The Definitive Guide to Passive Real Estate Strategies, thedefinitive-guidebook.com. Just education, just read about it. If you want to talk to me, you'll get emails from me and they'll have my contact information there. And you'll really talk to me, like Justin Moy. I don't have staff here that I pawn you off to. So get educated on what you're doing. Look at what you want out of life. Are you getting burnt out like I was back in the past? Are you not thinking of ways that you can build that long-term wealth, where passive investing is a big part of that? Start getting educated on those things. The biggest regret that people say when they're investing in anything is, I wish I started sooner.
Oh, I felt that in my chest. I felt, whoo. Oh man, this is great, man. One more applause, please.
I love the audience, man. I love the audience.
Go, man, Justin. Man, I can't tell you. I am so grateful that we had the opportunity to do this. I want to thank you again for spending your time on the show today. Greatly appreciated. All the value and gems that you shared today did not go to deaf ears. I could promise you that. What this, one of the reasons why this I'm so passionate about this is because people really don't know the impact of their own stories until they see it and they hear it, and it's like, whoa,
yeah,
wait, this guy's hype off just hearing my struggle to success and how I kind of turned the tide. It's awesome, man. It's like, man, this is game changing. So appreciative, a lot of gratitude for the listeners, anyone listening. Don't forget to share, and subscribe to the St. Clair Speak Show podcast. Like I always say, what good is information if you don't apply it? I will catch you in the next episode. I'm out.